15th monthly meeting of Addison County Economic Development Corp. First order of business today, just to approve the agenda. Copy of the agenda was in your packet. SharePoint. Are there any changes that anyone would like to make to it? We do need to add, as a first item, I want to chat a little bit about open meeting law and some changes that affect this meeting before we get into the bigger picture of open meeting law later on in the meeting. So we have a motion to accept the agenda as revised. Okay. Boom. Wait, Gene has moved it. Should seconded it. All right. So before we really get started, I want to let everyone know this meeting's being recorded. And the latest changes to the open meeting law, we're required to record all of our meetings. We need to post that on our website for 30 days after the meeting minutes are approved for that meeting. So that being said, we have to be cautious of everything that we're talking about, making sure we're not disclosing any confidential information in regards to even which clients we're working with. We'll have to keep that for executive session. So if anyone sees us veering off course and getting on a topic that really shouldn't be recorded, please call a point of order and we'll change gears at that point. So any questions, concerns about that before we move on? Next order of business is to approve the June meeting minutes. Those are also in your packet. You have a motion to accept those. Gene is moving it. Richard seconding. Makes the meeting minutes that much easier now, doesn't it? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Meeting minutes are carried. Thank you, Karen. All right, motion's passed. We have our meeting minutes accepted. I'll turn it over to Fred to staff activities.
Yeah, just if you're online, if you're attending remotely, if there's a vote, please do something to indicate your vote. Raise your hand to say yay or nay really clearly. We have to do roll call votes now. All right, so staff activity. You had a 2-month staff report in your packet. Just some highlights. We wrapped up the legislative session and I put a ledge wrap up, went out to everybody, and it was in your packet this month, just in case you missed it. I was interviewed for a Vermont Business Magazine. They do an annual report on the Addison County economy. That's in the August edition, the current edition of Vermont Business Magazine. Had a lot of municipal meetings in June and July. We met with almost every municipality now. I was in Shoreham last night. There was lots of reporting due in July, including our FY24 annual report to the Agency of Commerce. That was also in your packet, just FYI, in case you want to dive into that. We wrapped up the Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange program. So that's done. And we're done our report to the RDC that got the grant, and they're putting together their report to the state. We had 16 clients in Addison County that got a total of $64,000 in grants for technical assistance. We also, from our office, managed the Lamoille accounts, and they had 15 clients. The Food Hub feasibility study is done. I've got the final copy on my desk. We'll be submitting that to USDA next week. Let me know if you have an interest in seeing it. We'll publicize it, but if you want to see it or have them come do a presentation on the report, we can do that. It's good to have that wrapped up, and now Acorn will kind of move to the next phase in that project and decide what they're going to do in the near future and in the future to expand their services. The loan committee approved a $20,000 loan. What did I say?
20.
Oh, no, 200,000. We're working on a new application to USDA Rural Development for a new IRP, intermediary lending program loan. That's our money we use to lend out. That last loan pretty much used up our last allotment from USDA, so we need to apply for more. That's due at the end of September. That's kind of a must-do project between now and the end of September. The audit is well underway. We've supplied reams of information to the auditor, and they're doing their part now. Hope to wrap that up on time this year, have it done by early October. We did hire a new audit firm, and they seem to be a little more efficient. We are also doing a free cybersecurity audit with the Leahy Center at Champlain College.
Oh, good.
To check on, how we handle security and things like that and handle information. So we're filling out some questionnaires on that, and then they'll take a look at our systems. I did want to point out on your agenda that all the upcoming meetings for the rest of the year are on there. We've got our mixer on September 11th. Right, yeah, September 11th. It's going to be at Shacksbury Cider this year up in Virgins. Then we've got our September board meeting. And then we have an October board meeting, and then in November we'll have our annual meeting. That'll be at the Middlebury Inn. And then we typically have a legislative breakfast in November. But I'm thinking we might change that up a little this year and arrange some do a business tour with our legislative invite the legislative delegation to do some business visits instead of having a meeting. Anybody feel strongly that we should still have a meeting with them, let me know. And we can still do that, and I'm just not sure they'll do both. Any questions or comments on the staff report in your packet? I'm supposed to look at the owl. It's really hard to look at the owl when you're all up there. Okay. Opportunity for citizen comments.
You have anything with legislative? You want to talk about?
Legislative wrap up?
Yeah, that was on the agenda.
No, just that it was in their packet. That's another FYI in the packet.
As part of open meeting law, we have to take citizen comments. This is an opportunity to raise any issues or address any questions that are not otherwise on the agenda. So does anyone have any of those? We don't have any non-members with us, non-staff or non-members with us today. But does anyone have anything they want to report that others have brought to them to bring to the board? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on.
So
Meeting law changes.
we'll allocate 10 minutes every meeting for that, and if somebody's here, they can. All right, so I included in your packet lots of information on Vermont's open meeting law and the changes that were made during the latest legislative session. To summarize, a previous amendment prior to this session, amendment to law specifically made any service provider including RPCs and RDCs, that receive performance grants from the state, subject to the open meeting and public records law. The amendment included a provision prohibiting disclosure of information relating to a proposed transaction or agreement between the service provider, that'd be us, and any other person in furtherance of our public purpose prior to the final execution of such transaction. So person in Vermont law refers to individuals and businesses. So that clause gives the RDCs another reason to enter executive session. So confidential transactions can be discussed. So in an open meeting law, there's a limited reasons that you can enter executive session. And that was added to that. So we just have to be careful about what we're discussing in open, and if it's confidential information because of normal open meeting law, but also if it's about a client that we're working with, we can discuss that in executive session. Otherwise, RDCs have to follow the open meeting laws. What that means, even before this year's changes, is that non-meeting communications are limited to scheduling meetings, organizing an agenda, and information distribution. Otherwise, even meetings between members on a phone call or on Zoom have to be warned and follow all the statute for an open meeting. If you have a quorum, and you're not supposed to meet without a quorum. We have to publicly announce all board meetings 48 hours in advance by providing notice in 3 places. Any member of the public has the right to attend board meetings. Public ADA accommodation law applies. Minutes are a matter of public record. And as I mentioned, reasons of entering executive session are limited by statute. And the public can inspect or copy our meeting records and any other public records of our organization. They're subject to limitations in law. I mean, there are certain documents that are exempted from the public records examination, including, loan documents and things like that. This also means that we're subject to the changes that were made during this past legislative session by Act 133. And that set forth new requirements based on whether an entity, a board, is non-advisory or advisory. A public body is advisory if it does not have supervision, control, or jurisdiction over legislative, quasi-judicial, tax, or budgetary matters. So if the body has any of those, they're non-advisory. That part gets a little confusing. So since our board, the ACEDC board, has supervision, control, and jurisdiction over budgetary matters according to our bylaws, the board is considered non-advisory. Most of our other committees are advisory. And so the advisory committees don't have to follow as many as the new changes that were made. But if you're non-advisory, which this board is, here are some of the new changes. So our agenda has to include specific topics of discussion, potential actions to be taken, the location and time of the meeting, and information to allow the public to access and participate in the meeting electronically. We've always had that on our agenda, but we haven't been noticing our agenda. So now, and the meetings have to be either fully in person or hybrid with a designated staffed physical location for the public to attend and a designated electronic platform to attend remotely. So just like we're doing now, but the public can also come. The meeting has to be recorded. Agendas and meetings have to be posted on our website with minutes posted within 5 days and for at least a year. And the meeting recording has to be posted on a designated electronic location for 30 days. So that's for non-advisory, which this board is. The advisory bodies can continue to meet using remote only if they choose to, or they can do all in person. So staff is incrementally taking the steps necessary to comply with the law, including the changes made this year. Some changes were made to today's agenda, as you saw. Making changes to the agenda and the public comment period, for example. We will likely always have executive session on the agenda now. And I'll indicate on the agenda what I think we'll have to go into executive session for, the reason. And I sent around yesterday kind of a summary of the law that, that gives you the motion to make to go into executive session. So you have to say, I move to go into executive session for, and then you state the reason, personnel, contracts, whatever it is, and then cite the law that allows you to do that. And that's what I put in the email. It's the two sections of law that you can cite to go into executive session. And we can only go into executive session for one of those reasons. And during executive session, you can only discuss that subject, and you can't make any decisions in executive session. You have to come out and then vote on if you needed to vote on something that you did in executive session. So we'll start noticing our meetings online and two other places for the September meeting. We'll start the posting requirements with our September meeting. And the staff report that you get from me will be, and then the summary that I give during the meeting will be reduced a little bit. I won't mention any, specific business names or any confidential information during that time. If I need to talk to you about it, we'll enter executive session. Any discussion during the board meeting, just be careful to keep it to non-confidential topics. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but most of the other stuff is things that we have to do, staff has to do to comply, like posting the meeting, warning the meetings and posting the minutes and everything. So it's a little bit of a change, but I think once we start doing it, we can get used to it. Any questions or concerns, discussion? There's Mud.
I'm just looking at the 1 VSA 313. Do we have to actually say it's pursuant to 1 VSA 313, or can we just say for the purposes of discussing a personnel matter? I'm just trying to figure out where they're requiring us to note the statutory citation. Is that a requirement? I mean, I can't imagine that public bodies are going to do that every time, but
I know that
if you don't say it, I'll fill it in, but you have
Okay.
to cite because it's 313 and then you have to pick the
right. No, I
subsection
understand. Yeah, you have to. Yes, but I get that the subject matter, but okay. We just have to have that in mind if we want to say subsection 1A or whatever. We just have to know ahead of time. People are not gonna remember all that. If that's a requirement that you cite the actual number and letter of the law as opposed to the sentence that says to discuss grievances or labor relations agreements with employees, or it's a minor point, but I just was wondering if I'm not seeing where it says
Yes, Sue, this is Joe. My understanding is that's best practice based on the trainings I've taken, because you want to create a clear link between, the action that is bringing you into executive session and the statutory reference. I've never seen anywhere and things surprise me all the time. But I've never seen anywhere where there's a specific requirement for this, for the statutory citation, but it is just best practice to make sure that,
Yep.
you know, you can draw that perfect line.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's a good thing to do. I didn't see it as a statutory requirement, but yeah. So if that's what we want to do, that's great. I just want to make sure we had that handy, you know, and to have our muscle memory available anytime we want to do this.
And I can, you know, we can, like I said, if I think we're gonna go into executive session, I'll have that indicated on the agenda. We're supposed to do that anyway.
Okay,
And I can put the citation on the agenda.
perfect.
For people.
Perfect.
Anything else?
There was a very small thing that I just wanted to say as well, Fred. Earlier, you had said that if there's not a quorum, you know, we shouldn't be meeting. But I think it's important to note that the open meeting law, if you have a quorum, it's not a meeting. And so therefore, it's not, you know, my understanding under the open meeting law is it's not an issue because you're under that quorum requirement. Again, there, you know, best practices might be not to discuss business outside of meetings, but based on what I've read of the open meeting law, it wouldn't, you know, be an issue if, you know, 2 or 3 board members under the quorum requirement, you know, happen to be in a situation and said, hey, what, you know, that was really interesting last month or something like that. But if there was the quorum of board members there, that's when it would sort of go over that threshold of being illegal.
Right, would have to be warned and everything. Yeah. And things like social events where we happen to have more, if we happen to have a quorum at a social event or a conference or something, that doesn't count as a meeting.
But I would think
As long as we're not,
a meeting with legislators at a legislative breakfast would have to be warned if we have a quorum there. Correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anytime there's a quorum and you're doing
Yeah.
business.
Yep.
And you do.
Would that need to be reported then?
Yeah, figure that out. Bring our owl with us if we meet at the very end. Right. All right. We'll move on. So I wanted to, do you have something?
so we're up to OPES, right?
Yeah. So in light of some of the personnel changes that have happened, which we'll discuss further in executive session later, I went through and did some revisions to that list of initiatives that we looked at the retreat and the opus, and of course the budget. So I want to kind of run through those with you just to get, you know, your sign off on the changes. So if you'll bring up the list of initiative, well, what's it called in the file? It's called, and these were in your packet, ACEDC opportunities, it's called.
What number?
12. Yeah, it's a little slow with this function. So on the list, I've highlighted, you know, this was the list that had pretty much everything we do on it, and we were trying to prioritize them. So what I've done is highlighted them in beige or whatever, brown, I guess it is. For things I think we'll need to suspend for now. And yellow highlight for things we can continue to do. And then I took those and redid the opus from the same kind of perspective.
I should have shared this.
It's there.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to share it with them,
Yeah,
then I have to go into my settings and change it so that I'm allowed to record. Which I can do. please.
I have it up on my screen at home, so I don't need it shared, but I don't know if others attending virtually do.
We're working on that right now.
Yeah, I've got it up on my screen.
Always something.
Yep.
So can you see it now?
Yes,
Oh, good. Okay. All right, so in the area of access to capital, remember our main thrusts and initiatives, we have access to capital, business support, expansion and relocation, innovation and entrepreneurship, labor force expansion, workforce development, and then our operations. So under access to capital, we'll continue to apply for loans and grants that are, might help us or others in the area, in the region. Specifically, as I mentioned earlier, the USDA lending program, the IRP. And we may apply for another rural development block grant. That's what paid for the feasibility study. I would not anticipate reapplying to the Leahy Institute for Rural Partnership. Those are due in September, and there's just too much to do between now and then. We would continue to apply to BGS on behalf of businesses in the area. We have 4 that are looking to apply this year. Probably would not pursue, try to find and pursue other grants right now. Would continue to administer the ones that we have, the NBRC grants. We have 4 of those we're administering right now. We'll continue with the GROW grant. That's the grant, the tourism grant we're doing with the chamber. We're kind of committed to that for this year and next year. We'll continue with the brownfields grant with the planning commission. That doesn't take a lot of our time. And of course, we have to do our quarterly and annual reporting. Continue with the revolving loan fund, of course, and providing letters of support to others who are applying for grants. We're going to try to develop closer relationships with equity and angel investor groups. I'm saying we should put that off for now. Most of business support, that's the core of what we do, so we'd keep most of that, continuing to do most of that. I was working on a commercial property mapping and list. Have to put that on hold, I think. And developing deeper relationships with brokers and property owners, and doing more work for nonprofits and municipalities. Those are the 3 things I think we'd put on hold for now. And then pursue this idea of taking the legislative delegation on a tour of some businesses. I'd really like to do that. I think that would be helpful. That would be later this fall.
Gina has her hand up.
Gina?
my hand is actually up for the innovation and entrepreneurship section. So if you want to go into that first, that's what my question is on, Fred.
Okay, so you see there that I'm suggesting that we suspend most of that work. The business incubator, we have put some work into that. It's at a point where we need to do some research on the market for it, whether there's a market for it. And same with the implementation of it, shared office space, creating shared office space here at this building. Put that off for now. Creating entrepreneur networking opportunities. Put that on hold. The project we were working on to rebrand the Middlebury Industrial Park as the Middlebury Innovation District and creating an entity to manage that. Put that on hold. I hadn't done anything with the rail spur idea yet. It was just, I was just gonna set up a meeting of stakeholders, but I put that on hold for now. And I'd been approached about, from a business about trying to convert the A. Johnson property in Bristol into a wood products incubator. And NBRC was kind of interested in helping us with that. I put that on hold as well. So the three we keep doing, although I have the makery on here is keep doing, but that is in question at the moment. I'll know more by the end of the month. The food hub, like I said, that's pretty much done. I kept it on there because at the time, the feasibility study wasn't completely done yet. Now it is. So now it goes back to Acorn. So that kind of comes off our to-do list. There's a few more things to do to wrap up the grant that will be done by like September. The thermal energy network is something we're still working on. We're partnering with a bunch of people on that to look into the possibility of thermal energy networks in Millbury. Our role in that is primarily to involve potential businesses in that. So we would keep doing that. And so what's your question, Gina?
Well,
Or
I'm
comment?
thinking based on what you just said, that maybe while I've been away or unable to make a few meetings, there's been some changes in the situation with the makery that I'm not aware of. I guess what I will say for the record is that to the extent that all three of these are low or medium and two of them are low, I hear you saying, changes for the makery. I hear you saying food hub almost done. And I certainly think all three are important, but I know we also had conversations in conjunction with things that have happened with staffing about the extent to which we should be carrying the ball and in any way, shape, or form. I know we are not the ultimate organizers of those three items, but I know we did have some conversation about whether or not we wind up taking on a little bit more than we necessarily should based on our involvement level. So I guess I just wanted to say, considering the discussion we're going to have later in executive session related to staffing, all three of these are things that I think I'm not even sure they should be the focus of a simmering pot on the stove for the next, 90 days while we get through some transition. That's all I wanted to add to the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I can certainly, limit our involvement in the absolute necessary. I mean, with the food hub, we have to wrap up the grant and that's it. There's some invoicing and some reporting to USDA, and work with Acorn to socialize, publicize the feasibility study, whatever way they want to. Under labor force expansion and workforce development, the first two are grants that the Career Center got that I was involved in at the beginning, and really they're taking that over now. They're working on those. I can be involved if they need me, but really they're their babies now. They're moving those forward. I am still involved in the one with Collins. I'd actually need to check and see what's going on with that, but and then the third one is about, when I'm meeting with businesses to make sure they're aware of the Career Center and connected with them, and that's something I would do in the normal course of a meeting with our businesses anyway. So and then the Grow Grant recruitment events, our involvement in that is fairly low. It's primarily the chamber doing that. Our part of it is mainly grant administration, but we're, again, on most of these, our involvement is bringing and connecting the businesses to the initiative. And then the rest of it all has to do with the Addison County Workforce Alliance. And I'll still plan to convene that group. I've changed it to every other month instead of every month. But what I'm trying to do is get some other people who are involved in that to take over and, do some of these initiatives, so I'm not the person leading them. So if someone doesn't step up, those 4 things you see at the bottom there just won't happen this fall. Those are all things we're gonna try to do this fall. Manufacturing month is October. And under operations, a lot of our operation stuff we have to continue doing. We have to operate, but some of the municipal outreach will definitely reduce that. I've been to most of them already anyway. The idea of acquiring this building, just put that off for now. I've been working with Matt to Karen to get information and to present that to you as an option, but we'll just put that on hold for now. But the rest of these things we have to continue to do. I think I can reduce my participation in some regional and state groups that meet occasionally or monthly. So that's the task list. So now will you go to the opus? So you'll see, I mean, the opus is what you set up at the retreat for us to focus on for the next year. So there, what I did is I highlighted the items that I think we can, with your approval, suspend for now. If there's capacity, we'll try to do them, but otherwise I think they need to be this relates directly to that list we just looked at, but they see a lot of workforce development and entrepreneurial ecosystem items highlighted. That means that we'll suspend them for now. And then the rest of the opus would be filled in based on your approval of that.
Any questions for Fred on this?
For example, is there anything there that you think we really ought to be doing? I mean, obviously the biggest focus for the next several months needs to be the transition and staffing.
I'm good with your changes and updates.
All right, well then let's jump to the budget updates.
Okay, so open up the budget. So that translates to some changes to the budget. Both. So the budget, there's kind of 3 major types of adjustments that I've made to the budget. One is due to we got closeout numbers for FY24. In giving all the information to the auditor, we closed out FY24. So we've got the actuals for FY24. In several of the grant lines and several of our grants, we didn't spend in FY24 what we thought we would. So they're kind of shifting over to FY25. So there'll be revenue in FY25 from some of the grants. A lot of that is actually happening like right now, July and August, as we wrap up some of those grants. The second one is due to reprioritization, some of the stuff I just talked about. And the third is personnel changes. We'll discuss that in detail in executive session, but you'll see the adjustments on the budget. I'm just going to walk down the budget. So if you'll go to column AX and go to the top of the document. So you'll see the highlighted lines. The first one is the food hub grant. That's a reimbursable grant, so the revenue comes in, once we do the work, we bill USDA and they pay us. We don't get the money until they pay us, so we did a lot of the work in FY '24, but a lot of it got billed just now to USDA, and we'll have one more round of billing to USDA. So some of that income will come in FY '25. The next one is the NBRC grantee administration. So those are those 4 NBRC grants: the Otter Creek Child Care Center, Porter Hospital, Friends Over Jen's Opera House, and Otter Creek has 2 grants. So we're helping to administer those grants. And what I've noticed is, we get 2% of their grant, but we have to earn it. We have to bill them for it. We have to have the hours to bill them. I'm just noticing that we don't have the hours to put into it, to review their grant submissions to earn the full 2%. So I'm reducing that income from those grants a little bit, based on our history with it now. It's kind of new. We haven't done that a lot. Last year was the first year. This is our second year doing it. So I know a little more about the hours we put in to earn those dollars.
So not having the time to put into it, is that gonna compromise the level of review that we're putting into these, or you're still gonna be able to do an
I
adequate
think we'll
review?
still be able to do it. We have to bill them monthly, and then we review their submissions to USDA on a quarterly basis, so it's not constant. The next one is the Food Hub Grant Administration. So the other one is the first one was the money we pay out to the consultant. And then this one is our administrative dollars. So it's the same thing. We'll be getting more of those dollars in FY '25 than last year. The next one is the tourism grant. Similar situation where, just some of the dollars are shifting to FY '25. And that grant will finish at the end of, it's on a calendar basis. It ends at the end of 2025, calendar 25, but they're saying that they'll continue. Then I took out the $10,000 Leahy Institute for Rural Partnership grant. I just don't see us having the time to apply for that. They're due this September. We've got the IRP to apply to and lots of other grants to continue to administer. So we were going to use that for incubator research. We've given, priorities, just taken that out. So those are the revenue adjustments, mainly to do with grants. Then on the expense side, a big one is, of course, salaries and wages. And then the taxes and everything that goes along with that. We'll talk about that in detail in executive session. A little bit of change in our insurance cost, got the bill for that. And a big shift in the marketing communications, with the changes in personnel, we're giving that back to Clover Ridge Marketing. So their bill is a little higher. It's higher than we had planned on. And then the Food Hub dollars it's in and out, it's a grant that comes in that we pay out to consultants. So it shows up as a revenue and expense, except for the piece that we get to keep for grant administration. But that's why that's there. That's what we will pay out to the consultant in FY '25, actually, like right now. So it does make a positive difference to the budget, about a positive revenue of 23,000, 24,000, given those changes. Any questions on any of that?
No, for me.
I'm good. Stop sharing.
All right,
Need a motion to go into executive.
so we'll need a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
I'll move that pursuant to the appropriate statute.
I'll second it.
Now,
It's moved and seconded.
will you get who seconded?
Right.
Any discussion? All right, hearing
It was
none.
Joe.
All those in favor?
You got.
Aye.
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 All right, we are in executive session. At this point, we'll ask everyone else to leave.
And we should stop recording. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Good catch, Sue.
Okay, so we are out of executive session. We will not be taking any action based on our conversations in executive session. I'll turn it back over to Fred.
So on the Makery, this, the steering committee met this month, and I think there's just a question about whether it will continue at the Career Center. That's the way I'll put it for now. And there's a meeting happening next week that'll, I think, help determine that or not, and we'll see where it goes from there. But it's been difficult trying to keep it operating and being self-sufficient. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen yet. I don't know if you have any other insights, Nicole. But probably you'll learn as much at the meeting next week as I do, so.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that Faith's been traveling and I've been traveling over the summer, so our schedules didn't align until I believe it's next week that she's coming in. We have been providing the Makery with the balance each time we do a payroll run. So she knows the current balance.
Yeah, so the idea was to, for it to be self-sufficient and just having a difficult time getting, enough participation so it supports itself. The Career Center doesn't have the resources to, subsidize it. And that was the idea from the beginning anyway, was to make it self-sufficient.
The purpose of the record, who is Faith?
Faith Gaia.
Oh.
She leads the steering committee and runs the sewing lab at the Makery.
Faith.
So that's what I know at this point.
All right, we're coming up on quarter of, any members have anything they want to bring forward at this point? Or report out on? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded.
Second.
All those in favor? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the meeting's adjourned. Stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I guess,